Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nyata Pasti. I'm as a moderator here, and I'm with my friends Gernanda Che Guevara and Miranti Khaerunisya. So, in this lovely occasion, we would like to explain about comic and graphic novels. So, the first topic is comic. Comics are illustrated stories that are easy to digest and funny. It incorporates a pictorial element along with the textual element. Comics are also literary works in the form of stories that are displayed in the form of images, in which there is a prominent character who generally contains fiction. Just like other literary works, it is usually published periodically. Comics based on their types, namely comic strips and comic books. Comic strip is a comic that consists of only a few panels. The arrangement can be vertical, horizontal, or even square. Because of their limited space, comic strips usually only consist of a few pictures and text. We can find comic strips in newspaper on social media. Meanwhile, comic books are comics that have been printed and published as a book. Some are serialized, some are finished in one volume. We find this kind of comics in bookstores. The next one is example, explanation, and autobiography. For the first example is Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Jeff Kinney is a former of a soccer player. He was born on February 19, 1971. Currently, he is an American writer and cartoonist. He became famous after the children's book of Diary of a Wimpy Kid exploded in the market. Kinney works full-time as a writer and illustrator. He also created the kid-friendly Poptropica site that includes two islands called Wimpy Wonderland and Wimpy Boardwalk, where the characters and show Diary of Wimpy Kid are featured in the Poptropica universe. More than 250 million copies of Diary of Wimpy Kid have been sold globally in 2020. And the series of being developed into feature film in which Kinney is executive producer. Diary of Wimpy Kid is Jeffrey Kinney's second work after early life. This comic book tells about the protagonist, Greg Heffley, is a video game addict who likes to lie, likes to manipulate his friend, disrespect his parents, and doesn't show personal development as a child in his growing up.
The next example of comic is Garfield. Garfield is written and illustrated by James Robert Davis, who was born in Marion, Indiana on July 28, 1945. Davis grew up in a small black Angus cow farm in Fairmount, Indiana, with his father James William Jim Davis, mother Anna Catherine Betty Davis, and his brother Dave Davis. Davis' childhood on a farm parallels the life of Garfield's owner, John Arbuckle, who was also raised on a farm with his parents and a brother Doug Boy. John is a cartoonist who also celebrates his birthday on July 28. Davis attended Ball State University where he studied art and business. This is where Davis' first comic was featured, apparently inspired by school life. Davis also drew the majority of the illustration for his 1963 senior year book, using the same characters. Davis decided to peruse current comic strip to determine what species of animal characters might be more popular. He felt that dogs were doing well, but noticed no prominent cats. Davis figured he could create a cat store, having grown up on a farm with 20 cats. Thus was created the character of Garfield. Garfield the store was based on the cats Davis grew up around. He took his name and personality from Davis' grandfather, James A. Garfield Davis, whom he described as a large, cantankerous man. Garfield is an American comic strip created by Jim Davis, originally published locally as John in 1976, then in nationwide syndication from 1978 as Garfield. It chronicles the life of the title character Garfield the cat, John Arbuckle his human owner, and Audie the dog. Garfield is also shown to manipulate people to get whatever he wants. The strip's focus is mostly on the interaction among Garfield, John, and Odie, but other recurring minor characters appearing as well.
The next topic is about graphic novel.
Next, I'm going to explain about graphic novel. A graphic novel is a type of novel that has comic-like characteristics, or in other words, it has elements like the pictures that comics have in general. Graphic novels also cover fiction, non-fiction to anthology. Graphic novels are distinguished by the term comic book based on the period in which they were published. Comic books or comic strips are usually published periodically, while graphic novels are usually published at once. Meanwhile, the term graphic comic is often used to refer to the special content of the comic. Graphic novels often feature adult stories and themes. This to distinguish them from ordinary comic books intended for children's reading.
Okay, my name is Gernanda Che Guevara, and I will explain about the example, explanation, and autobiography. First, A Contract with God. William Erwin Eisner was an American cartoonist, writer, and entrepreneur. He was one of the earliest cartoonists to work in the American comic book industry. In 1978, he popularized the term graphic novel with the publication of his book A Contract with God. He was an early contributor to formal comic studies with his book Comics and Sequential Art. The Eisner Award was named in his honor and is given to recognize achievements each year in the comics medium. He was one of the three inaugural inductees to the Will Eisner Comic Book Hall of Fame. Will Eisner appeared at the dawn of the comic. He pushed the boundaries of the media with his famous weekly comics such as The Spirit, and with the publication of A Contract with God in 1978, he created a new medium altogether. The graphic novel, unlike before, heralding an era when serious cartoonists were liberated from the limiting confines of the comic strip. Eisner's work is a shining example of what comics are. Eisner considers himself a living witness reporting life, death, heartbreak, and the endless struggle for victory. The Contract with God begins with a gripping story that reflects the real-life tragedy of the artist. The death of his daughter, Framehurst, a devout Jew, questions her relationship with God after losing her beloved child. Hurst's crisis is linked to the lives of another unforgettable resident on Eisner's iconic Broadway Avenue, a fictional version of the classic New York City street where he grew up at the height of the Depression. Second, Mouse Art Spiegelman. Spiegelman is an American cartoonist, comic editor, and advocate known for his graphic novel Mouse. He was born on February 15, 1948. He has spent a decade since 1992 as a contributing artist for The New Yorker. He is married to Molly, who is the designer and editor of Francus and the father of writer Naja Spiegelman. In the mid of 1960, Spiegelman began his career with the chewing gum card company Tubes, which was his main financial backing for 2 decades. He also co-produced parody series such as Wakey's Packets in the 1960s and Garbage Kids in the 1980s. In the 1970s, he rose to fame in the underground comics world with his short, experimental, and often autobiographical works. The strip selection appeared in the Breakdown collection in 1977, which, after which Spiegelman shifted his focus to the length of the Mouse book, about his relationship with his Holocaust victim father. Postmodern's book described Germans as cats, Jews as rats, and ethnic Poles as pigs. It took 13 years to complete until 1991. The book received a special Pulitzer Prize in 1992 and has earned a reputation as an important work, responsible for bringing scientific attention to the comic media. From 1980 to 1991, Spiegelman, a multi-edited 11 edition of Raw, large comic and graphic magazine, helped introduce prominent talents in alternative comics, such as Charles Burns, Chris Ware, and Ben Catcher, and introduced several French cartoonists to the English language. The pair worked for the New Yorker in the 1990s, leaving Spiegelman to work on In the Shadow of the Towers on 2004, which tell of his reaction to the September 11 attack in New York in 2001. As editor, teacher at the School of Visual Art in New York City and lecturer, Spiegelman have promoted a better understanding of comics and have mentored younger cartoonists.
I think that's all about our presentation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.